is all about branding. I'm really excited about this one because branding is considered to be something that takes a really long time. And, we've had several branding experts come into the Done Day program, and I wanted to show off this amazing one today and really talk about, okay, if you have, a method or transformation that typically takes a long time, how can you rework it so that VIP days can be a way that you offer your expertise specifically for branding today? But I think really anyone who has something that takes a longer time can take a lot of really good nuggets out of this conversation. So with that being said, I'm going to bring Miss Nikkita up onto the virtual stage. And I am going to go ahead and let Nikkita introduce herself to the good people of the internet, share a little bit about you and your business.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Jordan, so much for having me. It's really great to see your face again and feel connected to the Done Day community. I'm so glad to be here. As Jordan mentioned, I am a branding expert. My business is Ritual Morning Studio, and so we like to say that we elevate the everyday and make everything we do a ritual. So I try to take my clients to that transformation as well, where a lot of times with branding, they're really stuck in their head. They don't have perspective. I get to take that off your plate and make it feel really magical and exciting. So that's what I love to do. And I think the biggest challenge I had in the past was I would experience cyclical burnout because, as Jordan mentioned, branding is typically something that takes a long time. It can be 1 month, but it can be 3 to 6 months even. And I absolutely love the work that I do, but it just wasn't feeling sustainable. So I knew I needed a solution, and that's kind of where VIP Days came in for me.
Yeah, love that. And, with that, branding is, I used to have a very, I don't know, it's complicated relationship with branding, I would say, for a very long time, actually, because it felt like no one understood me. It felt like I was too many things, like both ands, that felt contradictory to branding people, and they would try and force me into a box. And so it was really frustrating for me. And then I did have a really amazing branding experience about a year and a half ago that finally was like, oh, okay, like this is branding. Like this is truly what it's like. And I love that, again, you really bring out the everyday of your people, because I think too with branding, it's like, oh, I have to become like the best version of myself and be branded as the best version. And so with what you shared about who you work with, it's like, nah, like this is how they are every day, no matter if they're dressed up, dressed down, traveling, not traveling, like this is who they are. And I love that holistic approach to branding for sure. So talk to me about what your services looked like before VIP days, like what your offers were like, who you were serving, kind of just give us the whole gamut.
Yeah. Before VIP days, I took the packaged approach, which is a little bit better than hourly in that you're not trading time for dollars in that way, but I had very set deliverables and expectations, but there still was always that scope creep, because when you have that stretched out timeline like that, people kind of just lose sight of the end goal. And I think it's not only, like I said, the sustainability issue for myself as a service provider, but I think for my clients too, they would lose momentum and perspective, and something that they were either initially excited about or something that maybe they had nerves about, that gets stretched out and those feelings get amplified. And so I was doing my best to streamline my process, but as you call it, the panini hit. I had 2 kids at home who both under 7 years old at the time, one that had to sit in my lap to do virtual kindergarten, that I couldn't do these long drawn out projects anymore. I couldn't do any of it. And so, when I kind of started to come up for air and figure out what's next for me, I knew, like, I don't want to go back to that. But then what does this look like? Because I think we've all seen during this time of so many things going virtual, our headspace just cannot hold all of that for so long. We're Zoom fatigued. We're, connecting virtually all the time. And to have so many open loops, it's just hard all around. And so I knew that something had to change. I started to hear the term VIP day, intensive and all of that. But I thought, oh no, not for me. There's no way, on my website before this, it said, I'm all about the slow, the intentional, things like that. And I'm still about the intentional, but I realized that doesn't have to mean slow. And, I had to kind of trick myself into, excuse me, I've been sick, so my voice kind of is wavering in and out, but I had to kind of trick myself into the possibility that I could do this. And it started out where I was noticing scope creep with my past clients as well, and that they need, I'm going to pause for a second and take a drink. They would need kind of one-off things where we built their brand, but they're like, oh, I need a business card, or I need this, or I'm changing this thing. And I'd be like, well, how do I price that? Like, I want to honor the work that we did together, but all this back and forth takes just as much time as the small job. So I thought, okay, maybe I can't offer a full brand, but I can offer these one-off things and say, well, I know you have more than that. Let's book a half day, or let's book a full day, and really think about how can we expand your brand from there. And even before I offered that officially, I said to myself, okay, this client wanted this and that. Behind the scenes, I'm going to book this for a half day and see where we get with that. So I tested it for myself kind of secretly and realized, like, these things that I think take a lot of time really maybe don't. And so then behind the scenes, it's like, okay, well, what if I did that with a brand? What if I said all concepting was going to happen on this day? What would that look like? I don't know, because usually I'm mulling for a couple weeks. And that actually was, I know you haven't asked this yet, Jordan, but I'm going to tell you all about like the turning point for me, because every single client, I would come to this point of this, I had this 2 to 3 week concepting phase. And I would have this period of, sometimes it was 1 day, sometimes it was 3, of dragging myself around the house like, I can't deliver. This is never going to come through. This isn't going to come together. And it was so like, I'm like, okay, I guess that's part of the creative process. I know I always come through, but I always feel this way. But you know what? It doesn't feel good to feel that way for several days on end. It just doesn't. And so when I started testing this out, I realized, oh, when you have a day, you might have a couple minutes of that, but then you have to keep going. And so I'm just not spending time there anymore. And it's great. And you prove something to yourself when you do something in a day that, yes, I can do this. And not only that, but you're working with clients on a more regular and steady interval. And so my design craft has improved exponentially because I'm working with more clients. I'm doing lots of different things. I'm pushing myself to be better, and I become better. And so all these fears that I had were just alleviated so quickly by doing the thing. And so, like I said, there are kind of these backdoor ways you can secretly test it out for yourself and prove to yourself. But then you can kind of start with those clients you're already familiar with and comfortable with, like, hey, let's try this together. And then I felt bold enough to say, you know what, world, come on in, because we're ready for this. And I will say too, I think you asked who I was working with before, and it was kind of a little bit all over the place, but kind of each client was telling me a little something different about what I wanted to be doing. Generally, I've worked with a lot of creatives, and that's still the case. But it's also helped me to think about niching down in terms of stage, because I was noticing there were certain things that some clients would come to me and they're like, I don't need this full package with all these bells and whistles. I don't even know what they are. And so that helped me determine, well, if someone were to come to me for a day, what is it that they actually need? What's going to move the needle? Let's say they're in launch phase. What are the absolute branding essentials that they need? Or let's say they're just starting out. What's going to get them the furthest until they're ready for more expansive branding materials in a couple of years? And I knew those commonalities for all of those. And so that helped me kind of, because, it is a day. So we do have to narrow in our services, and that's a good thing. Like, you can think about what's going to be most impactful for the client, and also what do you want to spend the most time doing? And so, for me, that's like the primary logo, that's the color palette, that's the typography, those essential things that whatever stage you're at, you may need that, and you can implement it quickly. And it also opens the door to continue that collaboration, because for me, I'm very intentional about who I want to take on. So this is a good way to warm up and get to know each other, get those essentials. And then we can say, come on back, let's build upon this foundation and that we've established and round it out with something more immersive. So it's less to bite off for me, and it's also more actionable for the client, because they're like, okay, I know what to do with these few things. I can go ahead and bring it to life immediately. And it's this exciting thing too of like, we're working throughout the day. They get to peek into a designer's sketchbook that, you know, for a lot of people who aren't familiar with branding, I know they have no idea what it looks like behind the scenes. And a big pillar for my business is collaboration. And this has allowed me to kind of open the door a little bit more and say, I'm going to send you a little peek of my actual sketchbook page. You can circle something that you're really excited about and tell me, like, keep going in that direction. Or, okay, so you saw this was on paper. Here's where I bring it on screen, and this is what it's looking like, and here's why. And so we get to have this really collaborative, fun experience where they feel like part of it, but not like pressure to make big decisions. They just get to witness it as it's going along. They can tell me if like we need to course correct it all, and we just kind of keep rolling with it. And it's been so much fun.
That is so fun. Like, yeah, I wouldn't even know where to like think branding happens, or like just the inspirational process. Like, that's so cool. And I think too, differentiates you in, you know, the sea of samesies of how branding folks generally work. And I also love that you pointed out that intentionality doesn't have to mean slow. And I like love that. And, you know, just like want to shout it from the rooftops, because I think that is the general gist of perception of intentionality, is it has to be slow. And again, with you sharing, you know, the little bits and pieces of your VIP day, that is very intentional. It's intentional for them to be kind of peeking over, you know, your digital shoulder and seeing the process happening in real time. That is intentional. It doesn't mean that it has to be happening for weeks in order for it to mean that, which I absolutely love. So with that, you shared, you know, kind of why you made that then transition and the journey that you took to make that. How did you decide on like what your VIP day was going to be? Because again, like you said, there's branding of there's so many opportunities for branding. How did you land where you are? And again, how can they take what this is and it be applicable like as quickly as possible? How did you land there out of all of the ways that you could have gone?
I think even before I started offering VIP days, I knew that I loved the brand deliverables and that experience. But you know, you said something earlier about how you felt like branding might force you into a box. And one of my biggest things is, it's like I said, with virtual and online things, we need connection more than ever. We need to feel personable. We need to feel tactility. We need to know that there's someone behind the screen. And I just love every part of that. I want to come alongside. I want to hear your story. I want to listen. I want to like pull out the threads of the things that you didn't say. And so part of that is strategy, but more for me is that visual translation. That like, I like the strategy part. I like doing the ongoing deliverables part, but if I don't get to have my hand in that visual translation, then my cup isn't quite as full. And so I knew I had to include that, but that's also like one of the biggest pieces of it. And so that's where going through the Done in a Day program and thinking about my framework really helped me to break that down, because I can see the different phases of the process, and I can think about so for my framework is root, ritual, and reveal. And so the root part is that discovery, that strategy that I mentioned, that for some designers, that may be the only thing they offer. And that can be a VIP day in itself. But for me, I've learned the questions that I need to know and kind of the essentials for that. So that I was able to kind of say, okay, if we're working on a day, then I'm going to have you do some of this work here and bring it back to me. And so where that could be a process where I would hold their hand quite a bit, I've kind of said, this will be your heavy lifting portion. So that's the root. And then the ritual is, like I said, all the things that I love. That's the sketching and the designing and it's not about polishing, but it's about creating something expressive and personable. So that's where I go and I take everything they shared with me and then I envision what that could look like. And so that's where the bulk of my day is spent. And because I can collect that information up front, I will read through that and just have it kind of mulling over like the week before, so that then I can kind of trust myself on the day of like, okay, it's in there, you know what to do. Like, you're just gonna spend this whole day in your creative zone, which is such a gift. Like, before it would be like a little bit of design here, let's answer some emails, like a little bit of this, here's some more admin. And so I was probably spending that same amount of time, but it would be like, oh, I have to take my time. So I can spend an hour here, but then I should go do that other thing. I can spend a couple hours here, but then do that other thing. So instead, it's kind of giving me a shortcut to that creative flow space that, whether you're a designer or some other type of creative professional, and really all service providers, I think we have that flow of our zone of genius, right? And so it's sort of shortcutting that for us of like, that's where I'm going to be all day. And so that involves, like you would recommend, having systems set up in a framework so that there's space for that to happen. And to me, that's what a VIPD is. And so then the final part of my framework is the reveal. And that's just kind of handing it off to the client, empowering them and saying, here's your toolkit. You can put this on your website. You can take this to your Instagram. You know what colors to use now. You have this beautiful logo and you get to go with it. And so having that clear framework for me reminds me, okay, here's what needs to happen before, here's what's going to happen after, and here's where we situate right within it. And so as an artist, as a creative person, I have always known that constraint actually encourages creativity. And so for me, VIP days are this perfect place of just the right constraint for creativity and good work and all that intentionality to flourish.
Oh yeah. I definitely agree that constraint is where creativity can really flourish. Like, when you are just, people think creativity happens here, but if it can kind of get too big and then you don't know where to really go. So I love that you mentioned kind of the constrained creativity working well together when it comes to VIP days. And so since you did VIP days before you joined Done Day program, I would love to know why you decided to get support if you already were doing them.
Yeah. Like I said, I kind of took this backdoor of approach of, I'm going to test these out and tinker. But with that came some mindset blocks of, oh, it's just these little things. And I'm turning this around, so they only get me for a day. So clearly I can only charge so much. And I had these kind of blocks of what I thought was possible or how I could present it. And I love that the Done in a Day program speaks to not only creating the VIP day itself and ensuring that's solid, but all the system stuff that I talked about, how you present it and everything. So from the very first stages of getting your business and everything structured, but also once you put it out in the world, how do you show up? Where do you talk about this? All of the marketing stuff that I found really kind of intimidating and overwhelming. Part of the reason I chose VIP days as well is I really like simplicity, and I don't want to scale to have a big team. I'm happy with having this lean business, but I still know that it requires intentionality everywhere else. And so I knew that your program was going to help me take you there, help take me there. I've listened to your podcast. I know how you operate and how thoughtful you are. And I was like, well, Jordan is the person that can really help me take this to the next level. And ever since then, I've just felt so much more confident about sharing this and knowing that my service isn't less than, it's actually more. It's so much more impactful. And we talk about that a lot in the program. And then having the coaching and the different touch points. And again, I've talked about collaboration and community and connection. That's all there and Done in a Day as well. So I didn't have to do it alone either.
Yeah, I love that. And so share with us again. So you came into the program, you adjusted your VIP days and tweaked. What was your first VIP day, doing it like kind of the new refreshed way? What was that like? What was before? Were you nervous? What happened during and then kind of after?
Yeah, I think it was around joining the program that I kind of put an official name and offering on my website and put it out there more confidently. And I think I very quickly raised my prices as well, because I had been sort of just stepping it up a little bit. And I'm at the point where I may raise them again, but I left the program feeling very comfortable about how I was compensated and what the value that I was bringing to my client as well. Like I'm very intentional and mindful of the client experience as well as my own. So it wasn't a scaling just to scale, but to feel confident and sure that I was really solid on that framework, really thinking about how I can support myself with the systems and the automations around that. And so, I think it was maybe a few weeks into joining the program that I really just felt confident enough to say, I'm not even leaving those. For a while, I had a separate flat rate packages and then my VIP days. And so I removed the rest of my services entirely and kind of went all in on it. So I don't know the exact timeline, but I do know that I was kind of using the program to give myself that push. And then I did find what I needed in the program to say, yeah, I'm doing this. And why would there be any doubt? So.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. And definitely, again, just having those tools and having the community to cheer you on and be there for you as well is really super big. So talk to us about marketing. What are your favorite ways to market your VIP days? And how do you do that, again, intentionally and potentially collaboratively, since those are some of your biggest values? Share with us how you market and sell your VIP days.
Yeah, I didn't mention it by name, but a big piece of joining the program too was I knew for me, referrals have always been big, but it was kind of like this scattered thing of sometimes it came through, sometimes it didn't. And so I was able to really develop a referral program through Done in a Day, and that's still where I get most of my business. Like I said, I've kept things intentionally small. So a booked out month for me is only 2 to 3 clients. And so referrals are great for that because I don't actually want it to be where people have to wait a long time or my calendar feels so full that I don't have the freedom to spend a morning in my sketchbook or go for a walk, or that was very much a big part of doing VIP days as well. So referrals are a big part of it, but also I think the confidence to show up and just share. And so that has meant I've done more podcasting opportunities and speaking things and getting my face in front of the camera. So it's not even so much that I feel that I have to have this very organized marketing effort, but I have all these tools in my kit based on what my needs are for the coming months and how I need to connect with people. And I think even the freedom to know it can be that simple of, you're not just spamming people with your services, but you're making these connections. And here are some ways to do that. And I think also, you have a bonus module on podcasting and thinking about, I wouldn't have known what goals to have going into something like that without the resources that you provide in the program as well. So that's all been really helpful too.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, definitely big fan of referral partners. And, I shout it from the rooftops. I think it's the quickest way to getting VIP days up and running because you're talking to people who already have your people. And again, having that rapport with someone else who can say, yeah, Nikkita's dope, go work with her, she's your person, is going to be a much easier path than shouting it out on Instagram or doing these other things. And not that you can't do those things. However, I'm definitely, when it comes to intention and collaboration and whatnot, that's the kind of marketing I like to do as well. And so it really makes sense. So then with that, who makes good referral partners for you, just in case they're watching?
For me, it's other service providers, it's fellow creatives. The thing about having a VIP day too is that you've thought about your process, you have this clear framework, and my clients, I'm intentional about who I bring on, and then they love to tell other people about me. And it's easy to, because they're like, she has this one day you can book, and here's what you'll come away with. So there's just this clarity that makes it easy for them to tell you about it. And then there's possible connections in the group because with branding, you might need a copywriter, you might need a brand photographer, you might have all these different things. So there's potential opportunities for that type of connection as well.
Yeah, I love that. And so wrapping up with my last question is really thinking of you before VIP days. You may have heard of them. You may have seen a few people do them even. What would you tell yourself in that pivotal moment of no, actually, this is a really great next step for you or next level offer for you?
I think being aware of your time, like if I had moved away from hourly, so I wasn't tracking my time as much. But if I had been paying attention and added up those hours, I would have realized how much was being stretched out that could be condensed. And you would not believe it's worth trying just to go to bed at night, not having a client to think about because you wrapped it up already. Even if they're going to come back to you, you don't have to hold that in your head for longer. You sleep better. And is that not worth it alone? Like, and I would just say that work through those fears and try it. Like, trick yourself if you have to. If you're a person like me that has to trick yourself into it, do it. But you will be surprised just how capable.
Oh, can you do that last part again? Because I think your internet went out for a hot second. Go ahead, though.
Should I just start from the beginning?
No, you could just start like at the last like couple minutes. It was like basically just try it, like sort of thing.
Yeah, I would just say if you need to trick yourself into it, go ahead. Like if you need a way to test it from the back end, be aware of your time. You may be surprised how much or how little you're spending amidst all the admin and other things you do for your business. And you will sleep better at night because you don't have to go back to thinking about a client as you're falling asleep and forget that thing that you forgot to do. You just get to it opens up so much possibility. Like I said, that constraint, really, you will surprise yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that it's easy to track the time that you are doing stuff, but it's a lot harder to track the mental space that those ongoing clients or even longer project clients hold here, right? And whatnot, whether you're driving, showering, walking, it kind of becomes all consuming. And so I love that you touched on that point because not a lot of people think about that.
Well, I think a lot of service providers, they feel like, back that up a second. Nope, it left me.
Well, service providers, yeah, all y'all need to hear that message probably on like repeat for a little while of just, again, you are service providers, I think, especially on the value piece, it's really big for me and our team to highlight how awesome service providers are. And because I think, in the online space, it's like, and coaching and consulting is all well and good, and whatnot. But I think that they get the highlight and they get the highlight reel. And so we really love to highlight and showcase service providers and people who enjoy the strategy and the implementation and the execution that service providers provide, because it is so helpful. And I think that more and more service providers need to know that their genius is amazing and needed. So I'm here to shout that from the rooftops for sure.
Also, I do think that as a service provider, you are so busy serving and taking care of your clients that your business is always the last thing that gets your attention, which means your website's out of date, your listings, your marketing, all of that comes last. And so you will finally have opened up the space to be able to devote to that. And that doesn't have to take all the time that it was looming over your head and you never got to it. So you thought it would take weeks to catch up. But then you can build in Mondays are admin day. I go in and take care of these tasks. Like you were talking about earlier, you can batch things and you will just find so much more space and margin, both for your business, but also just for the things that you enjoy, for community work, for taking walks and all of that. It just allows, I think I felt with branding, I owed my client all of this time, but they deserve me at my most rested, recharged, invigorated, inspired. And I can go all in and give them that for a day and then do the things that support me in that with the rest of my time.
Yes. I'm all about giving your most excellent work. And you can't do that if you are tired, exhausted, overwhelmed, having to do 17 million things at the same time. It's just impossible. Like that's not even Jordan's rule. That's like the rule of business life, right? So I love that you touched on that too. So, well, thank you so much, Nikkita, for coming on and sharing your expertise, your experience, all of that good stuff. And again, if you're watching now or the replay, go ahead and comment, apply in the chat if you're interested in hearing more about our program. But other than that, I will see y'all next Tuesday for our next guest at the VIP Variety Show. Bye, y'all.